Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book Refuge, and welcome to a video I'm very excited to make, even though it may be a little redundant. Who knows? I get new followers all the time, new subscribers, and they might not know about this. So every once in a while, maybe about once a month, I put a question up on my YouTube community page. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel and you check that out. Community pages are kind of awesome. They're a great way to do announcements if people don't have other forms of social media. But anyway, I put up a question on there asking for video recommendations of what you guys would like to see, because I have a lot of my everyday or my weekly content and monthly content that I do. But sometimes I still struggle for video ideas and I don't know what you, the viewers, want to see. So I will put that up there. So if you want to help influence the type of videos that I make sure you do that. I also have a channel member level, the Romantic Renegades, where sometimes I will pose a question specifically for my channel members about which videos they want me to prioritize. So it kind of helps give you a slight amount of control over the stuff that's coming from me. But anyway, point being, you clicked here to know about books that gave me a hangover. Now, I just said that this might be a little redundant, because what that means is usually if I give a book 6 stars, it's because it gave me a hangover. Now, I've talked about before here how I don't really get book slumps. I'm pretty much always reading something. I'm always in the middle of something. I always have 2 to 3 to 4 to 6 books going at once. So getting in a book slump doesn't look the same for me as it looks for other people. More what it means is that if I read a book that is so good, that is 6 stars, that makes me cry, that makes my heart hurt, that makes me feel all the feelings, I tend to not like any other book that I read right after that book. So it's something that I've become aware of, where I read a book and I'm like, oh, I have a hangover. I need to choose carefully what I read so that I don't miss out on another book that could be a favorite, if that makes sense. So usually what I'll do to combat that is I will completely switch subgenres. So if I was reading a historical romance, I'll maybe read a paranormal, or I'll read a mafia, because there aren't likely to be a lot of similar things happening in those kind of books. So it helps me to kind of shake out of it. And that can help me to keep from, like I said, judging another book too harshly, or, having trouble finding another favorite, if that makes sense. So anyway, basically what this video is going to be is I went through my favorite reads and I ended up with 9 that are books that are all 6-star reads for me. And they were books that kind of wrecked me for the books coming after it, if that makes sense. So if you are a longtime fan, you could probably pick out at least a couple of these books. You'll know what they are before I've even started this list, because they are books that have been on my top lists in years past. But again, I was like, you know what, who cares if it's redundant? I love to do a video where all I do is gush about all the books in the video, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go through these 9 books that are just favorites for me. Maybe I should do it in order of when I read them. That would be kind of cool. Let's see if I can do that. I probably won't be able to do that. But we'll start with a couple oldies that are books that I don't talk a ton about on my channel, because I either read them at the very beginning of my Booktube journey, or I just haven't read them recently, because usually if a book is a 6-star read for me recently, it gets talked about all the time. But we're gonna go way back, and I do actually have a video about this on my channel, so I'm not gonna link it down below, but you could find it. I did a dedicated reading vlog for this book, because I am a stan, and I will be a stan until my last breath. And that is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. So I will always hold a soft spot for her, because it's Sarah J. Maas content that kind of rebooted my reading. Again, I've always been reading. I've been reading since I was 13. But there was a period during college and right after college where I was more into TV shows and movies. And so I was always reading a book, but I was reading maybe 1 or 2 a month instead of the 70 a month that I do now. And so I found Booktube through Sarah J. Maas. I was very interested in her books. I was seeing them around, and so I looked up some reviews and I found these. Anyway, point being, when this book came out, I called in sick from work. I had a sick day. Man, I loved when I worked for Microsoft and I could do that. And I binged this in a whole day. And as I said, there's a reading vlog, you could go find it, where I just sobbed my way through this. I think I even have the really pretty I have this special edition that even has the art on the inside. And I just freaking love it. I love the way that she tells a story. I love the romances in it. I loved the plot. I loved all the characters. And when I was finished with this, and this was back when I still did get book slumps. Like, I wasn't fully reading romance the way I do now. I was still reading a lot of YA fantasy, even though this is more new adult fantasy. And this just, I feel like she told this story so well. I won't hear any detraction from it. And I still recommend this series to people. Like, I really, really do. I don't hear as much controversial opinions about this one as people want to throw up about ACOTAR, which I also could say fuck off to, because I love that series as well. But this series is just so epic. I love it so much. And definitely when I finished this book, I was just kind of like a zombie for a little bit. So, definitely. Then we have a book that I also have a dedicated review for, because I have dedicated reviews for all the books in this series, and I will have a dedicated reading vlog and review for the 9th book when it comes out, and that is Written in My Own Heart's Blood by Dana Gabaldon. So for me, this series was my first like epic tome of a series, and really the only one that I've fully committed to. Like, this series, they're pretty big, but they started out at a decent size. This one, you start big and you just get bigger as you go along. I read this series through, I started it in 2015, I believe, and I was slowly read through the series. And the first time I finished this book, I know I finished it at like midnight or 1 in the morning, and there's a really amazing like ending to this one. And I feel like if this even had been the last book, it still would have been great. Don't get me wrong, I still want to finish out this series. Absolutely, I can't wait for more. But I was so stunned by this writing. I've never like taken the time, I've never gotten so deep into a series or characters the way I am for Diana Gabaldon's Frasers and Mackenzie's, and I adore them so much, guys. Like, I did a reread of these in 2019 to 2020, which is where I have all the dedicated reviews for this. I still get comments and reviews of these. And I reviewed every episode of season 5, and I also reviewed, like, I've done a lot for Outlander. It was the first videos I ever made that were completely self-indulgent, and it was the best decision I ever made because I got so many fans who felt the same way as me, and I was able to just have some great collaborations and made so many friends because I read these books. And it really was the first like big boost in my channel that showed me that reading books that I loved and talking about them, not trying to follow the trends, was what was going to be the most moving for me, you know? So yeah, I freaking love this series so much. And this book specifically, when I finished it the first time, I was just like, what do I do now? There are some friends right now that I'm actively like coercing into reading these books, and I don't regret anything, because I know, just based on the taste that they have and the things that they love, that they have the chance to just be obsessed with these books the way I am, and that it could be like mind altering for them in some ways. So I don't care. I'm a stan. I don't care what problems people have. This book has moved me so much. Okay, those ones were a little more dramatic than some. Let's see. Go through these. A Heart of Blood and Ashes. This is a adult fantasy romance that is also so sexy. This was really one of the first romantic fantasies that I read where the romance and the world were of equal importance, and it was an adult novel, okay? This book does not work without the romance between Yvonne and Maddox, and it does not work without the fantasy world. And it doesn't have the level of smut that I normally want from something, but it has the emotional connect. And I mean, it's sexy as hell. Like, and this is a dark romance in a way too. Like, their first interaction is a bloody hand job between the two of them. And our hero is so stubborn. Like, he's so stubborn. But when I was done with this, I was like, where are there more books like this one? And I'll tell you, since I've read it, I haven't found anything that hit me the same way. I've read some stuff that's close, that's getting there, but I've yet to read another fantasy romance that was of epic fantasy with a completely made up world that wasn't like paranormal, because there are some paranormal fantasy-ish romance that do it, but I never read one that was so brilliantly plotted or put together, and it gave me the same feels as reading, you know, an epic fantasy, but the romance. Way to go, Berkeley. I'm so proud of you. I love Milla Vane. I cannot wait for more books in this series. I know she's been going through some stuff, and so books got delayed. That's fine with me, as long as you continue to write such beautiful books. Like, take your time. I've been waiting 5 years for the next book in this series. I can wait a while for this one too. But this book definitely gave me a hangover, and I'm still pretty snobbish about the fantasy romance I read, because I feel like they either go too much into the spice, which, I mean, I love spice, but when I'm looking for a fantasy romance, I want that equal amount. And I get asked daily, you guys, you don't know, I get asked daily for me to do fantasy romance recs, and I'm like, I don't have them to rec to you, because a lot of what I read is either it's actually paranormal, because it's set in modern day, but there's like a fae world or this or that, and I don't have a problem with those. They're just not the fantasy romance that I want. I want this, and I haven't read anything that compares to this for me. I have not. I've tried, and I have not found it. Again, The Magic by Lisa Kleypas. This will not be the first time Lisa Kleypas is in this list. I don't care. I stan this woman. This book, up until the other book we're going to talk about soon, this was one of the best historicals I've ever read. It still is, but this was like in my top 5. This couple, they got a lot of issues. This is a second chance romance. This was a childhood friends to like enemies to lovers. Enemies on the guy's side, not really on her side. Here's them. I've talked about this book in so many historical romance videos I've done, but for me, there's a very like deep personal feeling about this book, and that's where The Hangover came from. So this book actually has the main love stories between Aline and John McKenna, who they had a thing as children. It got broken up by her father, and he like moves to America, and then he comes back. Well, when he comes back, he also brings a friend with. And this friend's name is, I always forget his name, even though I freaking love him. Marcus. No. Marcus is her brother. I always forget his name, even though I freaking love them. Let me find it. Gideon. And Gideon is his American friend, and Gideon falls for Aline's younger sister, Olivia, who has also been through some pretty traumatic things. And he is an alcoholic. And it's very interesting the way that they address it in a historical sense, because even she's able to see, even though alcoholism isn't quite as like diagnosed or anything, then she's like, you are addicted to this and it's going to ruin you. And I refuse to be married to someone who loves something more than me. And also, you can't give up alcohol for me, because if you do it for me, it won't last. And this is just a very personal story to me. I've said it many, many times, but I grew up in an alcoholic home. My father was alcoholic, and he got sober 6.5 years ago, and he had to do it for himself. It didn't matter how much he loved my mom, how much he loved me. Alcohol had a hold of him until he found a way to get control of it. And the way that Lisa Kleypas handles that in the story, in a fucking side plot, just blows my mind. Like, it just blows my mind. And I do love Aline and McKenna as well. McKenna's in my top Kleypas heroes, but just that little side plot in here is really what gave me the hangover, and I just wept. As well as when McKenna finally breaks through Elaine and is like makes her understand his deep feelings for her. It's wonderful. Then the last one that I'd read in a previous year, the rest of these are all going to be new. Again, if you're a follower, you know that Tristan Miles is going to show up on my list. I don't even know what else I can say about this. I love that these books have been so popular. The newest one in the series, the Casanova, just came out. I still think this one is the best. I don't feel that TL Swan could ever top this hero to me. He's so wonderful. This story is about a single mom with 3 kids, and she is running her deceased husband's company, and Tristan Miles is the Takeover King, and he is there to buy her business, and she refuses to sell it to him. And he makes it clear that he actually has an interest in her, and she's like, fuck off, you can't have my company, you can't have me, bye. And then a little while later, they end up in France together for a business convention, and they end up having a like weekend fling. And when they come home, Tristan still wants some of her, and she's like, I'm sorry, dude, I'm a single mom trying to keep my business afloat, I don't have time for you. And Tristan makes it his goal to take over this family in a beautiful way. Like, that sounds boorish, but the way that he falls for her and her children, and her children fall for him, is one of the most inspiring and beautiful and just real life love that I've ever seen. And this book, I could think about it too long and start crying, because I've read this book 4 or 5 times now, and I highlight more and more in the book when I do that. I love it so much. It's so beautiful. All right, now some that I read this year. Where should I start? We'll start with this one. Real by Kennedy Ryan. Wow. I was falling for Kennedy Ryan already. I do have some other books by her that I really, really love too. Like her Grip trilogy, specifically the last book, I really love that one. But when I thought of books that, like, specifically when I was reading this one, which has a beautiful audio that goes along with it, she did a day and date release with these. I highly recommend it because it is an art piece of itself. And when this book finished, which I binged it all in one day, I was like, there are no other words in other books that I care to read right now. So it was very difficult to find another good book. Even though a book I was very excited about came out just like I got the arc for it like 2 days later, which we're going to talk about that soon. Thankfully, it was in like a different genre, a different subgenre, so I was able to do that thing, like I said, where I skip. But this story, which is about, let me just check, I think it's Neva. Let me just double check. Neva and Cannon. Yeah, Cannon and Neva. Yep, I was right. And he is a film director, and she is the star of his film, and they have this crazy connection that's building between the two of them, and he makes it a thing to not sleep with his actresses, and she understands that, but she's also like, we need to do something about this chemistry because the pull between the two of us is too great to let anything get in the way, okay? And this is going to be the first in her Hollywood Renaissance series. There's going to be at least 2 other books and a short story, I believe, that are about the rest of the making of this movie. Like, this one was about the filming of the movie. There's going to be one that's about the score of this movie, and then there's another one that's about another part of it. I heard her talk in an interview. And like, when Kennedy Ryan writes, I shut up and listen. And this book solidified her as a favorite author for me. I have had my ups and downs with hers, and it's mostly because I'm spoiled and I don't like to suffer so much. So when she does like standalones, like within a series, I feel safer when I read it because I know that like there will be an HEA, because HEA is guaranteed. This book definitely deals with possible illness. It deals with the death of a parent from an illness. It deals with, I forgot the word is. Just a lot of pain. So just know that. But the way, like, I feel so safe in Kennedy's arms when I'm reading her books, even though they're going to make me suffer. So this book gave me such a hangover after it. But it didn't last too long, because then I was able to read The Spy by Sophie Lark. I was given the arc for this just a little bit ahead of when it came out, And this was the 4th and final book in the Kingmaker series, which is a spin-off series from some of her other books. And it's about a mafia school for children of different mafias around the world who get together, and it's supposed to be like this safe zone where they can learn about the family's business, become either a spy or a boss or a accountant. Like, they will learn how to become these different things. And this one, I can't tell you who it's about because it is like, it's a secret. The identity of the spy is a secret. But the way that Sophie built this world, I was so nervous about this book. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I was so nervous because I was like, I am so hyped and I'm so built up for how you're gonna tell this story. How is it gonna live up to it, Sophie? And now I'm friends with Sophie at this point too, so I'm like double nervous because I'm like, this is my friend and she's gonna wanna know how I feel. And I'm like really scared, and it was out of the water. Like, it was just so amazing. The action was so great. The sexiness was so great. The way she pulls in characters and stories from all of her previous books is amazing. And I just can't recommend this series enough. I do not recommend you read this book as a standalone. You're fucking crazy. If you do that, I'm sorry, you're dumb. You at least need to read the Kingmakers in order. Even if you don't want to read her other books, even though you should because they're amazing. This book will not even make sense if you don't read the other Kingmakers first, because it's literally a build-up to this book. So, just a couple more to talk about. Then we have the other Lisa Kleypas on this list, which is Devil in Disguise. I have an entire book club with Crystal over on her channel gushing about this book. I've literally talked about it on so many videos by this point. This is a 6-star read. It's very close to being my favorite read of the year. It is my favorite Lisa Kleypas book. It has my favorite Lisa hero and heroine. It's like, it's an insta-love like nothing you've ever read, okay? It is a instant connection, instant chemistry. Literally, I've marked this book up so much. I've read it twice. I read it and listened to it. And this is about Merritt Sterling, who is the daughter of Marcus and Lillian from her Wallflower series, and our hero, who is unknown. But she is running her dead husband's shipping business, and Care happens to be coming into port with some whiskey to sell, and there's some problems that happen, and so she has to handle him and talk about, you know, help him deal with the issues that have arisen. And they just have this beautiful love story. Like, there's only so much I can say because it's not like the plot is overly intricate. It's all about the relationship between these two. It is so beautiful that it was very, like, I didn't pick up another historical for 3 weeks after I read this, which I know that doesn't sound, but I read 1 or 2 historicals a week is usually what's going on, and I didn't read one for 3 weeks after this because I was like, nothing will compare to this. And true story, man, it's amazing. And then the last one I want to talk about, this was a viewer recommendation, and it just, like, it blew my mind so hard. Like, seriously, it's amazing. And that is Broken Wing by Judith James. This is I believe it was once traditionally published, maybe, I don't know, but you can't buy the original cover anymore because it's like $800. But this is kind of an epic historical with the romance being very heavy, but it is more about the hero's journey. And then the romance is very important in the beginning and the end of the book, so I just want to be honest about that. This also has some heavy trigger warnings for forced prostitution, for assault, for, rape, basically. It's not viciously shown on the page, but it happened. And it's about our hero named Gabriel, who was abandoned and raised in a brothel, and he saves the life of this little boy who also gets like kidnapped into the brothel, and he keeps him safe, keeps him from being raped. And when his siblings, Ross and Sarah, come to get him, the little boy won't leave without Gabriel. So Gabriel comes to stay with them. It's supposed to be for a year. And while he's there, he starts to fall in love with Sarah. But Gabriel's idea of love is not the same as ours. It's not the same as Sarah's. And so there are a lot of mistakes that Sarah makes. And she's so willing to admit that. She's very bold and brave and willing to be like, hey, I don't know what to do in this situation. You know, I don't know what it's like to have lived through what you've lived with, and for you to feel the way you feel about sex after it having been used as a tool against you for so long. And the way that they work through it together, the way that they fall in love, and the way that it all plays out is truly beautiful. It was truly beautiful. And it was just perfection. I loved it so much. This is also on KU, by the way, so you could read it for free. But anyway, those are going to be all my books that gave me a hangover. Thank you so much to whoever asked for this one, because it just gave me the perfect reason to just talk about books that I love this much. Which, not that I hesitate to do, but I do try to, you know, talk about other books and not just these ones. But thank you so much for watching. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more of them right now. Bye.